that is trying to recapture their DNA, looking to steady the ship. Brian Mbumo at the Stretford end! Manchester United lead in the derby! This 2-goal lead could be everything for Manchester United. A scene of satisfaction on a day when Manchester feels red. Two colossal clubs meet in North London. Arsenal against Manchester United.
Well, ahead of this highly anticipated clash at the Emirates, let's hear from both managers, starting with Mikel Arteta.
Yeah, well, obviously, Michael coming in is going to bring new ideas. Always the intensity rises up. You could see in the derby in Manchester the kind of behaviours and the game that they played. So, yeah, we expect a really tough match. We will adapt to that for sure, but we are at home and we know how important that game is for us.
Credit to Arsenal, you know, they're in a really strong place at the moment and they've built the squad and the group, and Mikel takes a lot of credit for that. He's done a fantastic job, and I think we've got our own ideas as well of what we need to do and what it's going to take to get there, and that's what we'll keep working towards.
Plenty of respect between the two managers. They, of course, met when Michael Carrick was in the job a few years ago. He and United took all 3 points. But let's start with Arsenal. The big question on many fans' minds is, who does Mikel Arteta start with up front? Of course, both Gyökeres and Gabby Jesus scoring in their midweek game against Inter Milan. I'll come to the striker first.
Jesus, I love him. I've always liked him as a player. Like Havertz, And Gyökeres is a goal scorer. It's not happened for him this season for whatever reason. He missed the pre-season. I think that's a big factor.
Yeah.
I think people don't realise, to try and hit the ground running. But Jesus, I think he's got that know-how in terms of playing in big games. Obviously, at City, won the league numerous times. Seems to be sharp again. The 2 goals overnight. But I don't know.
The good thing is you've got 3 very different profiles there.
Yes.
Gyökeres is more the traditional number 9. Gabriel Jesus is more of a false 9 because he likes to drop a lot, link up to the play, so good technically, better than Gyökeres. And Havertz is probably a bit of a mix of the two. Havertz is not fully fit now anyway to start a game like this and play enough. So it's really Gyökeres or Gabriel Jesus. It could depend on how the opposition is going to play.
Yeah.
And if you face a low block, if there's space for Gyökeres to run into, because he's probably be better for that with his power. But I think for a game like this, for me, Gabriel Jesus would be better suited, because I think without being too deep and too low, United will still have that block where they won't give you much space to run into, as we saw against City. And for that, Jesus is probably better.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you. It seemed like Martinez and Maguire did a really good job at containing the likes of Erling Haaland. So when you look at the other forwards that Arsenal have got, who else can try and cause some damage against a Manchester United side that's full of confidence?
I don't know, you speak about the forwards, but it's not just the forwards, it's the team, it's how you set up. And you speak about how they approach it, United. If they do sit off, then I agree with what you're saying about, you want a number 9 that's going to come and link play and get involved.
Yeah.
I think, when you're more dynamic and that, you need grass in behind, you need to run in behind. But it's going to be an interesting game. Be interesting to see who he picks. But Man United obviously got a little bit of momentum at the minute from the game, but I don't think you can get carried away. But it'd be interesting to see how they approach it.
A player that's come under increasing scrutiny for Arsenal is their star man, Bukayo Saka, because it's no goals and just 2 assists in his last 8 in the Premier League, we've got to say, because it's completely different stats in every other competition they're fighting on those fronts in. So, Julian, why do you think it's not translating to the league?
I don't know. I think the injury at the start of the season probably slowing him down a little bit, all the fitness that you work through in the pre-season to be ready for the season, and then if it's early, you've got that injury that kind of stops you in your stride a little bit. This is also a team that maybe had more input on the left-hand side this season, because Trossard has been really good, to be fair. Yeah. And apart from set pieces, it looks like Bukayo maybe is not as sharp, maybe not as decisive in the league that they would like him to be. It's a team that works a lot with their wide players and their wingers. The ball goes wide very, very quickly a lot. So if they don't really work out in one-on-one situations or their crosses, then Arsenal have a bit of a problem. That probably explains why, as we saw with the stats, those forwards haven't been really scoring as much goals or as many goals as we would have thought.
Is it becoming a bit predictable with Arsenal? Because
I think so,
Julian
yeah.
just pointed to
I
the
think
fact
so.
that most of their attacks are coming from the wings.
I think when you play against a block, whether that's a medium block or low block, you have to try and move the block. So, you know, we spoke before and I said there's 3 ways to beat the block. You're going to go over the block, which is difficult, but you still can try at times. Go around is what Arsenal do, but I don't think they go through enough. And maybe if they went through the block more, then Saka can run off the ball. Instead of always getting it to feet and having to beat people and create something and, you know, come inside like he does and hit shots. You know, I think if they can just try and play through more, with those good players that they get in those number 10 positions, then maybe he can run off the ball more, because I think those chances come easier. When you're running onto chances, it's a lot easier than getting the ball and beating someone and actually score at the end of it. It's difficult. So I just feel like they need to mix it up more.
Are you in agreement?
Yeah, completely. And Saka depends a lot on Odegaard. You know, especially with Timber, that triangle there on the right-hand side is key, even for Bukayo to get the ball in the right areas, in the right condition. If Odegaard is a bit off it, like, to be fair, he's been most of this season and including last season as well, then I think for Saka is not put in the best situations, if you want, than if Odegaard is on top of it like they were together 2 seasons ago. So it's all that collective sharpness to find a little bit more for Arsenal, especially against the block, like Jay just said.
But when you think of what they spent in the summer and the players they've brought in, surely they've got enough reinforcements there to be flexible with the system. And I mean, Mikel Arteta in particular.
Yeah, I think Madueke has been a good signing, although he's a bit struggling as well for goals and assists in the Premier League, even including back towards the end of last season. Martinelli is another good option on the left-hand side with Trossard. Eze can play there too. So there's just a lot of variation that you can bring. It's still not clicking for some of them yet, because maybe also the control that Mikel Arteta wants in games kind of prevents a little bit his attacker maybe to have the freedom and the flair that they can put.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, similar to Pep, isn't it? You know, that control, that's standing your positions and moving the ball quick. And I think you do lose that little bit of freedom where players can sort of like just go and roam and try and create chances like that.
And how frustrating do you think it is for the Arsenal fan base that you look at the likes of what they did in Europe and then in that first leg of the Carabao Cup semi-final against Chelsea, but it's not happening in the league, the draw against Liverpool and then more recently against Nottingham Forest? I
guess it depends. The draw against Forest, for example, I think the expected goals is just under 3. This is a game 3 goals easily. It's just not happened. We saw the Martinelli miss earlier. Gyökeres there probably should do better. There's the header. I think that's the header from Saka. That
unbelievable save, we've got to say. Yeah.
If you didn't create all those chances and the game was really static and slow and you could not break anything, then you could be worried. I think I know it's disappointing to drop 2 points in a game like this, but the performance was positive, I thought. Yeah,
on a different day, you'd have scored 2-3 goals. And I think that's the pleasing thing. When you create chances and you miss chances, you know, on reflect, when you review it back, you know, and as players and, you know, and staff, you look at it and you think, okay, on another day you would have scored 3 goals. Because they created chances, some unbelievable saves there as well. Yeah, so a quick reminder of how they look in the league. So it's 4 wins in their last 6, and then, as we just mentioned, it was a point apiece for them against Liverpool, and then the same away at Nottingham Forest. I guess the pleasing thing for them is that they're now back at the Emirates. They had 4 games away from home in 4 different competitions. They are unbeaten there. Is that a case of I'm not sure, more confidence this season, or do you think it's just something that's been quietly building over the last couple of seasons? Yeah, I think it's been building the atmosphere at the ground to start with. In Europe and in the league, it's really become a fortress where they're already very good defensively. This is the best team defensively in Europe. They're the best team out of possession in Europe as well. So not just not conceding goals, but you have the ball, it's okay, but they're so well drilled, so well organized that you can't go through anywhere. Yeah. So for that, I think the Emirates has been a special place, and yeah, the fans make it special too. And I think when you've got that kind of momentum, I know it's not always perfect the way they play, but when you've got that kind of momentum, being at home, you could face anybody. And Liverpool was a good game. It was a game where they wanted the control and they were happy to take that draw. But if they start coming at you, it's hard for you to get away from that pressure. Yeah, do you want to add anything to that on the fortress that is the Emirates? It is a fortress. You know, they're so good at home, and so they should be with the players that they've got. But I just feel like at the beginning of the season, if you would have said at this stage of the season, you know, what was it, 7 points head, you know, they would have said, yeah, they would have taken that 100%.
Well, of course, Arsenal look like the favourites on paper in this game, as did Manchester United last week. Manchester City, rather, against Manchester United. So let's turn our attention to the Red Devils, because, of course, they're in this new manager bounce, if we can call it that, with Michael Carrick coming back to the game. If we look at just how dominant they were, again, I mentioned the fact that they weren't the favourites going into this. What do you think he was able to change in such a short space of time to get all 3 points?
But you know what you get? I think naturally when a new manager comes in, that first game, for whatever reason, the performance levels goes up.
Yeah.
I think there's two things for me. I think Kobe Mainoo coming back into the team, because he adds that little bit of calm and quality. And I think Bruno Fernandes playing in a 10, closer to the goal. I think when you have that sort of quality, and even when you look at this goal, I see a lot of teams, and I've been involved in it myself, where you get like a 3v2 and players always make the wrong decision, or you see it in training. That's like a training goal.
Yeah.
Players make the wrong decision. The way to pass, the option by passing to Mbeumo on his left foot to finish first time. I mean, for me, playing in the 10 position is that's his best position.
What did you see that was different about this side then, Julian?
So I completely agree with Jay. The Bruno's new position, his best position, but being back there plus Kobe Mainoo. But I think also the change of system. One of the reasons why Ruben Amorim is not there anymore is because of that rigidity about his system and the back three and all of that, where clearly things were not too bad. They were fifth in the table when they sacked him.
Yeah.
But it was not what that team needed anyway. So to go back to the 4-2-3-1, Casemiro in that position, Bruno, as we said, and then doing simple things defensively without the ball. They were hard to break down. They double up really well on each wing. So Doku, and as we can see here, Ahmad and Dalot on the right hand side against Doku and O'Reilly and Ake. On the other side, it was Dogu, who's a left back really, or left wing back, with Shaw doing the same.
Even the atmosphere in the stadium.
Yeah.
I remember going there years ago. And that's what it was like. It's a difficult place when they're playing well. And I don't care how good you are, when you're put under pressure and you're having to keep your head down, and you've got players close to you and they're protecting the middle. And I like to say the touchline's your best friend. So as soon as the ball goes wide, make contact. And that's what they done. It was such a good performance.
And the intensity as well to win the duels, which we haven't seen enough of under Amorim. Probably because the system again was a bit probably difficult for the players to manage. But when you've got that intensity, when you're aggressive, when you're on the front foot, even with only 30% of the ball, because that's what they had in the end, it's enough. You're playing transition, you've got the players for it, you've got so much space up front, Ahmad, Dogu, and Mbeumo. It's just perfect.
Speaking of Amorim, I don't think we can be too hard on him, because in this exact fixture earlier in the season, they actually had a decent game. They had 7 shots on target. Arsenal aren't an easy team to go at. So what do you think will be their biggest threats in this game at the Emirates?
I think Carrick would pick the same team, and in a way will have the same tactics as he had at Old Trafford last weekend. So the block doesn't have to be too deep, and they will be aggressive in the right areas.
Yeah.
So when they feel like pressing, they all go, and somebody like Bruno triggers the press, or Mbeumo, and everybody goes. At times they'll be much deeper, and it'd be hard for Arsenal to go wide. As we said, they're a team that goes wide, but we expect the same double up from the 2 fullbacks and the 2 wide players for United. So that's the kind of the game I see, and they will play in transition, and Arsenal's race defense will have to be very good. Gabriel and Saliba will have to be very strong, and Zubimendi probably even more importantly to break down whatever Bruno is trying to do in front of those two. So it'd be very interesting tactically to do, but I thought Amorim had improved that team, to be fair, compared to last season.
Yes.
There's a lot of metrics where they were better in terms of shots and chances created and things like that. Carrick, by just being a bit more simplicity, I think has helped this team massively.
Yeah.
And we speak of Carrick. We spoke off the camera about his incredible record against top managers, because he'd already beaten Mikel Arteta back in 2021. Pep Guardiola just last week, he's beaten Klopp and even Unai Emery when Emery was in Spain. Do you think he can do it again at the weekend, JD?
Well, I hope so.
What, to
I didn't say that because you asked the fact, No, but I mean, it's nice. Obviously, I played with Michael at West Ham. We started at West Ham together. Obviously, Spurs in England. Good guy, young coach. It's nice to see young coaches getting opportunities. But I mean, listen, it depends how they approach it. It'd be interesting to see.
Thanks to Harriet speaking to Brian and Bumo there. Lee, how timely has his return been? You know, coming back from the AFCON straight into that side against Man City.
Yeah, he's absolutely massive. I mean, he's been such a great signing for Manchester United, and I think he just proves what he actually brings to Manchester United in a different way. I think you look at the goals that he's scored and the way he's got that clever bit of movement, and also he's got that versatility of playing in wide areas. It's such key timing going into sort of the business end of the season, where you feel that can Manchester United really go and push on? I think they can do. I think with that change in formation, obviously change of manager for now, things are looking quite brightly, and a great start for Carrick.
Yeah, well, I mean, talking about a new signing in Brian Mbumo, someone that has announced that he's going to be leaving at the end of the season, Alan, is Casemiro. Do you think it's the right decision, right time for him?
Yeah, I think so. I think, his spell has been kind of indifferent. He's been brilliant at times, and other times it's just not been there. Yeah. So I think he also, his wage structure that they're talking about would be a big gap for Man United to fill. There'd be a lot of room for them. And I think it makes sense for him as well, because I think he spoke very well this week, Casemiro, about, he's done his time there, and he'll give everything toward the end. And I think that's all played out very well.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say, that you think even like someone like that, you look at the wages, even as a manager, you're looking at the wages, that package that it takes up. Interestingly enough, they're also looking at, potentially renewing for Kobbie Mainoo, getting him on a brand new deal. Is that all part of the thinking there, do you reckon?
It is, because, any Premier League club, you have a structure, and part of that structure, when you have big players on massive money, it does create a lot of room for you to manoeuvre. And Manu, who's obviously was brilliant at the weekend and didn't really get a start hammering, it was all kind of speculation about what was going to happen to him. That looks secure now, and that will just be a small part of Casemiro's package.
Yeah, totally. And Lee, I mean, Kobbie Mainoo almost looked like a man reborn in that match, didn't he?
Yeah, it's just, he's been waiting, hasn't he? He's had to bide his time, and credit to him, because it's quite easy to get frustrated, not getting game time, and particularly that, we did see like a big impact from him when he sort of burst onto the scene, didn't he? And then all of a sudden he's not playing, and you're thinking, what is going on? Why?
It's a World Cup year as well. He wants to get in that team.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And this is key. This is key times for big players like Mainoo, and credit to him. I mean, I really say that, and I genuinely mean it. Is that to actually step into the United shirt again and fulfil that role and put on a performance just shows the calibre of player that they've got there.
I mean, it was a completely different Man United side to what, one of the best performances I've certainly seen from Man United in a good few years, and it all, looks like it's coming from one man, Michael Carrick. Alan, you managed Michael Carrick at West Ham. Did you ever think at the time you were managing the new manager of Manchester United at some point?
Well, what I would say about Michael Carrick was he was a super intelligent guy, right. And his natural ability on a football pitch made him emotionally kind of sound for the game and for after the game, because he was always had that calmness about him. Yeah. And I think he started his managerial career, and he's had a good sort of ground in Middlesbrough. He's got the experience. He'd come to Man United in a caretaker spell before and did very well. He knows the football club, and more importantly, all those big hitters who have been there in the past are going to be supportive of him. Yeah, and I think that's something that Amorim didn't get at times. Yeah. So I think he's got the backing of the ex-players and the fans, and I think that is important. But what he did really was get Man United back on the front foot. Yeah. It wasn't difficult what he did. It wasn't like some tactical master plan that Michael came up with. Yeah. He got them on the front foot, pressed them high, took a few risks at the back, and I think that's what Man United fans were calling for.
How much of it do you think was that? I mean, look, as someone, I'm an Arsenal fan, so watching Man United, it kind of fills me with dread that we've got to play them this weekend. For me, the big difference looked like Bruno back in that 10 role. Wasn't sitting as deep. Do you think that made a big difference to them?
I think so. I think when you look back at his sort of stats of what he's produced in the United shirt, playing in that role, you felt that you probably wasn't getting the most out of Bruno Fernandes. I think playing in that 10 pocket, I think particularly when we touched on Brian Mbumo, of what he can give and how he can spin defenders playing through that forward area, and having someone who can supply them passes to him. He's one of the best, not only in the goal front but assist fronts, and he's back in that position where he relishes playing. So yes, I think, as Al said, it's not all about, Carrick's, produce this master stroke at Manchester United. It's the first game, he's tweaked the formation, the players are there that know that they can play in them systems, and you've got Bruno playing in a position where he relishes playing, and Manchester United have the effects of that.
But I also think that, you know, it strengthened Man United in that Bruno didn't need to defend. And, you know, if I was a central midfielder, which I was in my heyday, which was like before the 60s, I would have loved to have played against Bruno in that number 8 role. You'd be running off for him, you'd be like knowing you could get in on goal. Because that's just not natural for him. So actually, not only did it strengthen them offensively, it strengthened them defensively too.
I'm interested about what you're saying about with Michael Carrick. I mean, he's not necessarily gone out there and done like a masterstroke, but if he goes to Arsenal, gets a result there, then ends up, you know, on a great, you know, confidence run. If Man United end up with Champions League football, which, you know, there's a big chance of that, is he enough to be a permanent manager at Manchester United? What do you reckon now?
Well, there's a lot of ifs in there. Firstly, he's got.
Well, we're going to get through it.
He's got to start. He's got to go and win at Arsenal.
Blue sky thinking here.
Listen, I'm a big fan of the fact that, you know, he's a British manager, and I think for too long the Premier League has looked abroad for the shiny star that's been doing well abroad. I think Michael knows the league, he knows the football club. I think he's got a great opportunity. But of course, all those ifs have to come to fruition. You know, he has to sort of, you know, go on a great run now. And Champions League football is essential for Manchester United. You only got to look at those figures that come out this week from Deloitte to know that they're going to need Champions League football again.
Yeah, they've slipped down in that ranking for sure. Now, much of the focus after the Manchester derby was on the war of words between Lisandro Martinez and former United midfielders Nicky Butt and Paul Scholes before the game. Butt claimed Erling Haaland, with his words, would pick Martinez up and run with him, while Scholes joked that Haaland would score and then throw him in the net. Again, their words. Well, after keeping a clean sheet, Martinez challenged the pair to speak to them face to face. It prompted Nicky Butt to tell the Argentina defender to grow up. I mean, as a result of all of that, right, we just wanted to look at the numbers and just show you how Martinez has fared against Erling Haaland since joining United. It's very interesting. The stats show, well, he's done pretty well. In games where Martinez has started, Haaland has scored 3 goals in 5 games, but all those goals came in a derby back in October 2022. So that does mean that Haaland has actually failed to score in 4 of his 5 games against Martinez. So he's managed just 3 shots on target as well. Lee, I mean, I'll come to you. Like, it's hard, isn't it? I mean, the lads are on a podcast. I understand that they're having a laugh, they're having a joke. But were they wrong to single him out before even maybe looking at some of the records?
Yeah, I think you can put it down as a cheap shot, can't you? But like you said, you know, you're on a podcast. You know, you're having a bit of banter and a bit of the crack, and you know, it's easily said, isn't it? You know, and I think it's gone on a little bit too long. I think, listen, you look at the stats of what he's produced defensively. I don't care height-wise, if he can produce them and keep one of the world's best centre forwards quiet. You know, he proves that he has got that mentality about him as a defender. But I just think it's just prolonging, is it? It's going on, and I think some of the players that have been at Manchester United, you know, the guys that you touched on, Scholes and Butt, you know, legends of the football club. I think when it gets talked about in that sort of situation, I think it gets blown up into such a bigger situation, and it's not really. It just needs resolving and put to bed, and Manchester United get on with their league form.
That's it. I mean, if you were a manager at Manchester United and, you know, your players kind of listening to what pundits like that are saying, what would you be telling them?
Well, I managed Newcastle. You know, noise was like constant. Yeah, you're always getting noise. You just got to ignore it, really, and move. You know, and particularly now with podcasts and everything else, social media. There's so much noise that you can't get wrapped up in it. Martinez was silly to react to it, really, in my opinion. He should have just left it alone. But you know, it's a storm in a key cup. It's nothing. By the way, he's a World Cup winner.
Exactly. Yeah.
One of those stats might suggest that, you know, he ain't bad.
Yeah, he's actually pretty good. Yeah, totally. Now,
first of all, looking ahead to the game, obviously you had a fantastic result last week. How's the mood been, and what's the team news looking like?
I'm not going to tell you the team first off, but.
Any injuries there?
No, everyone came through the game really well, actually. I mean, I can't say anything apart from the obvious. You know, it's been a good week. I think it was a big result, big performance, and a big kind of big uplift. You know, with the feeling and inside the stadium and it's getting that balance. You know, between taking the encouragement and the confidence from the game itself and the performance, and keeping level-headed and our feet on the ground, knowing we've got another big game coming up, and one game doesn't change and make you a great team. It gives us a great foundation to build on. So yeah, there's a lot of confidence. There's a lot of good feeling within the group, but measured with that, and we know what's coming, and we've got to be ready for it.
The club announced yesterday, and Casemiro himself announced that he'll be leaving at the end of the season. I'm guessing he'll have a pivotal role, but it also raises question as to some other players' futures. Harry Maguire, for example, another person's contract's running out. Have the club had discussions with him about his future? Does he know where his future lies?
I think that's just coming into that time of the season, really, and with contracts, and obviously January is January in the window, and kind of working my way through that, and coming towards the end of the season in terms of contracts and decisions, and that'll obviously be taken in discussions and in good time, really, and at the right time. So I think the kind of announcement for Cassie, I think was for clarity as much as anything. It was kind of decided anyway, before I arrived. So it's not just a knee-jerk kind of decision, but the type of personality, the character that he is. I think it shows with his performance last week, and where he is mentally, and how much it means for him to be here and to finish the season strong. I've already had that conversation with him, and he's desperate to do well and finish well, and it's good to see. So I've got no doubt about him at all.
Michael, just on that, does that mean that you're going to be involved in these discussions? Because obviously it's a bit of a weird situation that at the moment you're only here until the end of the season, and then clearly the club's got to operate beyond that. I didn't know what kind of input you had into all of these decisions over contracts and targets and what happens with it.
Yeah, well, for the week or so that it's been so far, I think looking too far down the track hasn't happened just yet. I think it's been the initial thoughts of what's happening now. I think what the important thing for me is any decision I make on my staff mate or the club mate. It's not short term. It's not just to get through till the end of the season. I've